I'm always being told that uh, preachers aren't supposed to talk about politics. And my response to that has always been, why? I don't understand why there's this idea that preachers are supposed to stay out of politics. Isn't it our responsibility as uh, people who work to apply God's word to the everyday lives of Christians and to help our congregations make that connection, to teach lessons, to preach things that are relevant to current events, and to uh, show the biblical application to these different things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. That's what preaching is supposed to be all about. And unfortunately, uh, we are living at a time where uh, politics is something that touches every American every day. It's not supposed to be that way. The way that American government was originally designed, the federal government was supposed to be minuscule in its influence on individual American citizens. The interaction between the federal government and individual uh, American citizens was originally designed to be almost non existent. The federal government was supposed to be all about the national borders, international relations, armed forces, things that the average American on a day to day basis have no interaction with at all. It was supposed to be the states where individual American citizens lived that was the predominant political force in a person's life. Well, we see things have changed drastically from that original intent. And now it's flip flopped. The state government has a much less direct impact on individual citizens than the federal government, and it's not supposed to be that way. Uh, and we see more and more every day. Um, One of my personal uh, misunderstandings, I will say, I'm increasingly changing my view on this because I've said in the past you can't legislate morality, but now I'm beginning to see more and more that when you don't when you don't pay attention to the moral issues, those moral issues that you preach on, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, and make application to these moral issues that we face in our day to day lives. Um, when we don't make the connections that we should make with those things, they become political issues. I mean, who would have thought that whether or not the most innocent of any human being, the most innocent a human being can possibly be, that we would come to a time in the United States of America when we're being told people have the constitutional right to murder the most innocent person you can imagine. That's a moral issue. It shouldn't be a political issue, but it is because uh, maybe preachers have stayed out of politics far too long. And I'm told all the time, you shouldn't preach on politics. Politics are divisive. Well, the gospel's divisive. And it's not the politics for politics sake. I mean, we're not talking about tax policy or foreign policy. Well, sometimes foreign policy, because sometimes it's really really stupid and dangerous for our personal lives when our leaders have their own personal agendas and their own personal power hunger above anything else that puts the lives of American citizens actually in danger. I heard someone say just recently that we're closer to the very credible threat of nuclear warfare than we were even during the Cold War. With the Cuban Missile Standoff and things like that, that there's a more credible threat of actual nuclear warfare now than there was even then. And so, yeah, w- m- maybe we should talk more about politics so that a nation that now this statistic has probably changed. I need to check it again. It's been a while since I checked it, but last I checked, 87% of the country claims to be Christian of some sort or another. Now I understand, my position on the word Christian, and if you're like-minded, okay, we understand that 87% that claim to be Christian, they're not all actually New Testament Christians, but there are people who claim to be Christian, and yet they're voting and supporting policies that are murder, that are just open abomination, same-sex marriage, and the transgender uh, being considered a protected class, or being given civil rights minority status. These things are, things are pretty bleak right now. And maybe it's because we don't spend enough time making the connection between the actual moral issues and the political positions of the people that we cast our votes for. We got a midterm election coming up. Which way is it going to go in a country that, unfortunately, it's probably less than this now, because we kind of see that trend. And that's one of the reasons that we're seeing the problems that we're seeing. Uh, but in a nation that claims to be 87% Christian, in a nation that has historically been identified as a Christian nation, with the largest literary influence on the founding documents being the Bible. How is it we get to a point in that country where people are voting to murder babies? And it's, not a debate of when life starts, and now it's right up to the point of birth. So you can take a child that is 30 minutes before they would be born, and it's okay to kill that child. 30 minutes later, after the child is born, now it's murder. Well, what's the difference between that actual person 30 minutes apart? What happens in that 30-minute span of time that changes the nature of that person that is being murdered? Right? How do we get to that point? Maybe it's because we've shied away from politics so much that Christians now have this idea. And you understand, so-called Christians, okay? That so-called Christians have this idea that they can vote based on family tradition, or because they want a higher minimum wage, or because they want this, uh social program that, pays people money for doing nothing. You know, so because we want that kind of thing, will vote for people who want to murder babies. I'm firmly convinced in recent years that the Democratic Party is under demonic influence and is a death cult. I I believe it. Now, I'm not talking about, exorcist possession type thing, but Paul said to the Ephesians that we uh, are in a spiritual battle. He said to the Corinthians that we're in a warfare for ideas. And right now, the ideas are really, really bad at high levels of authority. Maybe it's because we haven't talked about politics enough. And we need to start making clearer biblical application to the way you vote when you go to the voting booth. Because I'm afraid some people's souls are in jeopardy because of the way they vote. All right. So get your comments lined up in the live chat. We're going to watch this video. And after this video, we will come back and uh, we'll talk politics. And how would this principle kind of apply? What happens when you're divided, as Jesus says here, a kingdom divided against itself? What happens when you're divided between your words and your actions, or even you're divided in your examples, right? You have some good examples, some good behaviors that would be good for people to follow, but at the same time you've got some bad ones, right? That you really don't want people to follow those. Which one are people more likely to follow? The bad ones, right? It's that's something that has kind of intrigued me, I guess, would be the way to say it. Why is it that a negative influence seems to be more viral, so to speak, in nature than a positive influence? Why is that? It could be that it takes more effort to follow a positive influence than it does a negative influence, right? A bad influence is kind of easy to follow. You just kind of, maybe it's fun. Maybe it's something you wanted to do anyway. So you see somebody doing that, you say, see, well, they're doing it. It's that whataboutism. Y'all know what whataboutism is? What that means? Whataboutism? Whataboutism. Y'all know what that means? When you point out something that shouldn't be, and the person responds, or the group or people or whoever, the response is, well, what about this person? What about this group? Or what about this example? Right? Well, that's whataboutism. Does it matter? I mean, if I say that fornication is a sin, right? And the person responds, well, what about this statistic? Or what about this behavior? Or what about this cultural example? Or, whatever it is. What about, that's why they quit teaching abstinence in health, I'll just say health class. That's why they quit teaching abstinence, because they said it's unrealistic. Nobody does it. Everybody's doing the other thing. And, so it's unrealistic. So we need to teach, how to make it safe. Well, I got bad news for you. If it's outside of marriage, there's no way to make it safe. It's not safe outside of marriage, period. But, right. Right. So why is it that the whataboutism and the bad example, that those have more influence than the good example, right? You can point to a whole lot of people that, do the right thing, right? They one husband, one wife, for one life, one family, right? Do it the right way. A whole lot of examples of that. But they're discounted. People don't look at that. They want to play the whataboutism and look at the negative side, the bad examples, and say, okay, well, let's pattern society after the bad example. Well, that's not what we should do. Well, it's because the words and the behavior don't match. And so what does that do to the words? It nullifies them, makes them less powerful. It makes it hypocrisy, right? Isn't that one of the worst things that a person can be called, or that a person can be accused of, is hypocrisy? I mean, there's not very many people that if you call them a hypocrite, they're going to say, oh, well, thanks, right? Not many people are going to do that, right? Because hypocrisy is bad. But that's what it is when your words don't match your actions. It's hypocrisy. And so that's like that kingdom divided against itself. What? A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. So that influence, the influence of those words that don't match the actions won't stand. It will fall. Right? That's that kind of principle of division, I guess would be the way to say it. Right? That's one of the inherent characteristics of division. It can't stand. It's not solid. You can't build on it, right? You can't build on division. You can build on unity. You can build on the cohesiveness of the words and the actions matching, right? That's a powerful influence. But those not matching cannot stand. There's not a nation on earth today that could, by military might, overthrow the United States. The United States is the strongest, most prosperous nation in the history of the world. There's no other nation on earth that could overthrow the United States. But is the United States, is that condition that I just described getting stronger or weaker?
Stronger every day.
Not weaker, right?
What I mean is the condition you're talking about of division is getting stronger every day.
Right. What I'm asking is that the nation's internal strength and prosperity, ability to withstand any attack from it, is that getting better or worse? It's getting worse, right? We're getting weaker. Well, why are we seeing the level of prosperity going backwards? Why are we seeing the strength of the nation decreasing instead of increasing? What's causing that? Okay, at the top. Yeah, at the top. And what are they? And now, people can call me a conspiracy nut or whatever, but I'm 100% absolutely convinced it's intentional. It's intentional from the top. It's intentional. What are they doing in their misguided effort to hold on to power, to grasp power? What are they doing to the nation? By what? And I agree, but by what?
They're trying to appease people by giving some entitlements.
Okay, all of those things are the entitlements and the identity politics and all of these things. Those are all, I guess, measures or activities, policies to do what I'm talking about from the singular root for them to hold on to power, right? It really started really bad in I think 2008, I would say. Yeah, that's when it there was some before that, but it really became like the main thrust in 2008. And that's these identity groups, right? These identity groups, right? You got this group over here, the alphabet people, right? I'm not even going to try to run off the letters because they keep adding letters all the time, and I'll leave some out. So I just call them alphabet people, right? So you got the alphabet people in this group. You got the black people in this group. You got the Hispanic people in this group. You got the white people in this group. You got and are the policies being promoted and plans being carried out
to create unity between those groups or to try to keep those groups as separate as possible, as divided as possible. I don't think there's ever been a time in our nation's history when the country has been more divided, right? What happens to a kingdom divided against itself? It falls. It cannot stand, right? It's what happened to the Roman Empire. It's what happened to great empires throughout history. Internal division, internal strife is what led to their downfall, not external attacks, right? Internal division. And as long as the people in power cater to, okay, we'll get this group segmented off over here and we'll promise them whatever they want, and this group segmented off over here and we'll promise them whatever they want. We got their vote, we got their vote, we got their vote. We don't need this group over here now, right? We don't have to worry about this group over here now. So it's called identity politics. And this, I guess, identity has become prevalent, looking for intersection, right? For example, the intersection between being a single mother that is a lesbian and black, right? You got three of the, preferred groups that are kept, the intersection between those three groups, right? So you got this intersection identity or intersectional identity, or it's a term, something like that, where people actually look for something they can lay hold on that will put them into one of these groups, one or more of these groups, right? That's one of the reasons why you've got this social contagion now of the alphabet people, right? It's a social contagion means it's something that is glorified or popularized in a society, so more people in that society want that, right? So, if I'm a, middle-aged white male, which puts me at the bottom of the list for everything, right? I'm not, that's not a joke. That's a fact. My group that has been divided off and put over here, right? My group is the, I guess, the whip dog of all the groups, right? My group is at the bottom of the list for everything, for anything and everything. So, what does someone in my group do to lay claim to, some of these identity groups? And we've seen it, right? A lily white lady claiming to be Native American and getting jobs based on their claim for being Native American, right? You know who I'm talking about. Pocahontas, somebody called her, right? Right? Well, why would she do that? Because checking that box on a job application puts her in a preferred category because of affirmative action and quotas and things like that. Checking that box, she knows that she's not Native American. She knows that. It was a lie from day one, and she knows that. But she also knew, I'm in this group, so for me to get out of this group into one of the preferred groups, I'll just say I'm a minority, right? I'm a minority. No, you're not a minority. You're a white lady. Oh, you racist, right? That's how that works. So, I'll get myself out of this, disadvantaged group into one of the preferred groups. I'll say I'm, this letter of the alphabet so I can join the alphabet people. That's how social contagion works. works. It's popular. It's cool. And we have come to a point in our society where it is cool or privileged. It's a badge of status to be able to claim some victimhood of some kind, right? You hear it all the time. I mean, the reality shows that aren't really reality. What's one of the things that every contestant on these so-called reality shows has? Every single one of them has this tearjerker sob story. Every single one of them. That's because it puts them in a victim class that has preferential, at the very least, viewed in a preferential way, if not actually preferred benefits, preferred monetary value, right? So that's division. Let's divide everybody up into these different groups, and then look to what we can do to appease this group isn't going to get nothing from this group. This group's got to get it from me. Well, this group over here's got to get it from me too. That's how that works, right? So I get to stay in power by catering to all these different groups and appealing to their, so-called victim status. So I get to stay in power by doing that. And none of these groups are ever going to get together. They're never going to unify to remove me from power, right? Because none of these groups by themselves has the numbers to remove me from power. So as long as I keep the majority of these divided groups up, they're not going to get together and team up against me because I've got them divided. And if I lose one of them, it's okay. I still got the rest of them. If one of them turns against me, it's okay. I still got the rest of them. If you don't think that's the reason the borders are wide open, you're not paying attention. Those that are in power that want to hold on to that power no matter what it takes. Well, that's for one. That's the exact opposite kind of person you want in power, right? That was the example that George Washington set, right? That he could have stayed. He could have declared himself king, and everybody would have been okay with it. King. They would have had King George of America, right? He said no. He came to the end of his second term, and he said, I'm not going to seek another term. Because at that point, it wasn't a constitutional amendment to just have 2 terms. He could have stayed in office for life. He could have been a king. But he didn't want the power. He wielded the power while he was in office, effectively, but he didn't want the power. That's the kind of people you want in positions of power, people who don't want the power, because they're a whole lot less likely to abuse the power, right? And that was the example from the very beginning of the country. We got the exact opposite now. We got people that are, for one, they're so old, I don't know how they get up and down the stairs in the Capitol building. And they are going to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. No matter how much damage they do to the country trying to keep everybody divided up so that they can stay in power, they're going to do whatever it takes to stay in power, and they're going to be wheeled out of the Capitol building. Their cold, dead body is going to be wheeled out of the Capitol building because they ain't leaving until they're dead. Right? Well, that's bad. That's bad for the country. And the divisiveness. So what does that do? Now, I'm talking collectively, right? We can talk about influence collectively. So what does that do to the collective influence of the nation? Is America in its extreme, historically divided state, right? Never before in history has the country been so divided as it is now, into all of these different identity groups. So this internal division in the country, how has it affected the influence of the country in the geopolitical sphere. Do other countries respect the United States? No, no. In previous times, Russia wouldn't have dared to do what they're doing right now to Ukraine. Wouldn't have dared it. You know, because we had a president who told Vladimir Putin in no uncertain terms, if you attack Ukraine, we will attack Moscow. Period. That's how we will respond to you attacking Ukraine. So what happens when that kind of strength isn't there anymore, and the people who are there are more interested in keeping everybody divided so they can stay in power than they are of having a strong, prosperous nation? Well, tyrants like Putin try to take over other countries. And it's not just there, it's all over the world. There's all kinds of geopolitical fires popping up everywhere that would not happen with a strong American influence in the geopolitical sphere. That wouldn't happen. So that's what division does. That's what division destroys influence. The United States, the influence of the United States is not respected in the world right now. And so what's going on? The world's on fire right now because the most powerful nation in the world isn't respected, right? Well, we can bring that back to the church too, can't we? What about the influence of the church in the community, right? The collective influence of the church in the community. What is required? I've been preaching a series on it. What is required for a congregation to have an effective influence in the community?
It has to be seen doing good.
Okay. Okay.
It has to be.
But there's something further back than that. I mean, that's true. That's true. But something else has to be present before that.
I was thinking too that it has to be unified.
That's it.
In what it does.
Right. That's it.
Don't get wishy-washy.
There has to be unity. There has to be unity in the congregation, that we all stand for the same thing, as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 1:10. We all speak the same things. We have the same judgment. And the community hears a unified message from the congregation. What do you think it does in the community when what people hear from individual members doesn't match the public proclamation of the congregation, right? The congregation, publicly, from the pulpit, from, the public, the public message going out from the building, is contradicted by a member of the congregation. What does that do to that message in the community? Do what? It without a doubt hurts. Right? The community doesn't respect the congregation. Well, here, the preacher says this, and the elders say this, and they're putting out material that say this. But I talked to brother so and so or sister so and so. And, people in denominations call us brother and sister, and that's, they can do that if they want to. I'm not going to call them brother and sister, but they can call me that if they want to, right? They'll say, well, I heard so-and-so say this, I heard so-and-so say that. That's not what their preacher is saying. That's not what the elders are saying. That's not, so they got division. There's internal division there. Why would I want to be a part of that? Right? It hurts the work of the church. That's why unity is so important in the church. But I'm preaching my sermon, so I'll stop. Right? So the congregation has to have not only a unified message going out, but they should see that in the members of the congregation, right? It should match, right? That's what makes the work of the congregation effective. Well, that used to be the case. Now they're taking kids away from, yeah. Now they're taking kids away from their parents if their parents don't agree that they may be a boy in a girl's body or a girl in a boy's body, and they try to, talk to their child and say, no, you're a boy in a boy's body, right? You've got your personal preferences and tastes and likes, but that doesn't change the fact that you're a boy, or you're a girl, right? Doesn't change it. Now, if you do that, Department of Family Services will come and take your kids away from you and say that you're engaging in what do they call it, detransition therapy, or whatever. Like you're oppressing the child from being their true self or whatever. And it is sick. It really is sick. We're in trouble if we don't see some major changes pretty soon. We're in bad trouble. All right. Yeah, that's right. So I'm glad I could end on that positive note.
All right. Well, there it is. What do you think? I've gathered several good comments during the playback of the video. And of course, you're welcome to continue posting your comments and questions in the live chat. And we will get to as many of those as we can. I just posted a poll. The YouTube live chat lets you post polls, and I just posted a poll in the YouTube live chat asking the question, will a Christian be held accountable who votes for a candidate or candidates or a party that supports abortion? Because right now, whatever excuses a Christian might make for why they vote Democrat, the fact of the matter is, if you vote Democrat, you're voting in favor of abortion. Now you can say, well, that's not why I voted for this guy. I voted for this guy or this girl for this reason or that. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care why you say. I don't care if they're your mom or dad. I don't care why you voted for them. If you vote for a Democrat, the Democrat Party platform is to kill babies. They are a death cult. And if you don't think euthanasia is coming down the tube, it's already here. I mean, the governor of Virginia at the time, thank God he's not anymore, but the governor of Virginia at the time, in doing a radio interview for an upcoming, or maybe it was a podcast, I don't remember, I don't care, for the upcoming Virginia gubernatorial election at that time, it's already happened, and thank God he was voted out of office. He said live on the air that if a baby survives a botched abortion and is born alive, what should be done with that baby? And this guy said, this Democrat governor of Virginia said, that would be a discussion between the, I don't remember if he said mother or not. If he did, that's even worse. But he may have said the woman. It would be a discussion between the woman and the doctor, and to see how to handle that. What do you mean how to handle that? You've got a born living baby, and you're going to have a discussion with the doctor about what exactly? What exactly would that discussion be about? Whether to keep it alive or to kill it? That's what that discussion, I mean, that's the only thing to discuss. In the context of the response, that had to be what he was talking about. That had to be what he was talking about in the context of the response. A discussion between the woman and the doctor about whether or not to keep that baby alive or not. Well, that's euthanasia. It's already here. They're already advocating for euthanasia. It's in Canada. There's a company in Canada. I think the name of the company is MAID. I'm not exactly sure what each letter, but it's an acronym, and it's basically assisted suicide. And people can apply, and they can go to this, quote, clinic. I don't know what kind of clinic you go in alive and come out dead, but they call it a clinic where you can go to this clinic and they will kill you. They will, I mean, it's like lethal injection, like criminals on death row get lethal injection. And so it's remarkable that people can try to justify supporting a party that that's part of their party platform. And they've even dropped, see, they used to say it under the guise of safe, legal, and rare, right? Well, they've even dropped that. Now they want it, right up to birth, right up to, and even after, I just told you the example of where they're saying even after they're born, it's okay. It won't be long. They'll be talking about, we got to, if you don't think that the kind of people that will do anything, they will do anything to stay in power and to keep the money flowing in. In that video clip, you heard me talking about the war in Ukraine and how, under different leadership, that would not have happened. In the projection of strength and resolve and unwavering commitment, that would not have happened. It didn't happen until those in power were people who could care less about anything other than their own personal power and enrichment. And so, you got the war in Ukraine, sending billions and billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine, which I agree with the commentator that said it's a money laundering scheme, because that a good bit, or you should know anyway, that a good bit of that money that's being sent over to Ukraine is getting kicked back to the people that voted to send it. That's how it works. And it's destroying the country. And it's party politics, right? You can't say, well, I vote for the man, not the party. You can't do it. You should be able to do that, because there shouldn't really be, morally speaking, there shouldn't really be that much difference between the candidates morally, right? When it comes to the morality of the candidate, you would think, basic morality is just, it's basic. It's what people just, in Western culture that's been influenced by the Bible, it's the way people should think. And it really should just come down to a choice between, I like this guy's tax policy over this guy's tax policy, or I like, this guy's idea for what to do with the military better than this guy's idea with what to do with the military. That's really, all it should be. But you can't do that anymore, because the Democrat Party platform is death and divisiveness, catering to all of these different groups. And, that's not to say that the Republicans are, a whole shot better, but I know if I vote for a Republican candidate, then it's not just that Republican that I'm voting for, because I'm not registered with any political party. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm sure not a Democrat. A Democrat. That's my nickname for the Democrat Party, Democrats. Because you want to talk about doctrine of demons, man, you could just go down the list. Everything. And they have made the moral issues political, right? I wouldn't preach politics if politics would stay out of morality, but they can't. If politics was all about, tax policy, now there is a point where even tax policy becomes a moral issue. I mean, look back at Solomon and Rehoboam, and the how the issue was taxation, and it became a moral issue because it was unjust. but we understand, the people that are in positions of leadership in the government that we choose. See, that's what's so bad. And you've heard me say this, if you've listened to my preaching, or you've listened to me for any amount of time, you know that uh this is something that I've mentioned numerous times, that it the party doesn't matter. It's the morality that matters. And so if the Democrats tomorrow, if it just flipped and the Democrats tomorrow were either one of these could happen, and I would support the Democrats. Either they go back to the original intent of the federal government and get out of my business altogether, or they stop actively promoting immorality and defending immorality, and you go down the list. And like I said, you've heard me say this many times before. You go down the list of the moral issues of the day, the prevalent moral issues that we face in our country today, and look at what side of the issue the Democrats are on as a party platform, not the individuals, right? It would be nice if we could say, well, I vote for the individual, not the party. Okay, that would be great. Yeah, let's get back to that. But sadly, that's not the case. I can know that if I vote for a Republican, whether or not I agree with all of that particular Republican's views or not. I mean, he may be wonky on some things. He may have some personal issues in his life. How people are buying these attacks against Herschel Walker, I don't know. I mean, the guy wrote a book about his mental health and how he got treatment, how he got over it. He's all, and yet they still go back to those things and say, this is who you're voting for. No, that's not who you're voting for. You're voting for the guy who got through that, who has a redemption story to tell, so to speak, right? But these same people who are all supposedly all about mental health. You've got to trans your little 8-year-old boy into a girl and tell him he's a girl, lie to him and tell him he can be a girl. Just take these pills that will chemically castrate you. And even when you grow up and you realize, what a horrible mistake you made, too bad you're physically altered for the rest of your life and you can't undo it. Right. So they're so concerned about mental health that they're saying you should do that to an 8-year-old, because if you don't, he's going to be depressed and he might commit suicide. Even though the suicide rate in the transgender community is higher than anywhere else. And broaden it out from there in that whole alphabet people community. The suicide rate is higher than anywhere else. But you're supposed to believe they care so much about mental health that they're saying that you need to trans your kids. And then you look at Herschel Walker and they say, oh no, he's still the same horrible, wretched person he was before he got therapy and got over this stuff. And so, yeah, if you vote for him, you're voting for this maniac madman who wrote a book about his basically repentance and therapy and getting better. So don't tell me that they care about mental health. They don't care anything about mental health. What they care about is keeping people divided up into their little groups so that they can stay in power, stay in control. And so, yeah, I vote party. At this point in our political climate, I vote party, because I can know that if I vote for a Republican, I'm giving power to the party who wants to end abortion. I'm giving power to the party that wants to not trans your kids. Right? There's a whole lot of Republican candidates out there right now pushing legislation that would make it a federal crime, would classify it as child abuse on the level of a federal crime to give puberty blocking drugs to kids and to give them these what do they call them? I don't know what these gender identity affirmation surgeries. They're butchering children, kids. I mean, it's not just the kids in the womb that are cowering in fear of the Democrats. It's 8, 9, 10, 15-year-old kids that should be running screaming from the Democrats because they want to say, here, take this pill that will, make your daughter grow hair and make your boy's penis fall off. That's a hyperbole. It won't work anymore. And look at the people who are, and I know I'm ranting. I know that. I'm going to get to the live chat, but hey, my podcast, my rant. So, look at the people that are in power. Is all of those 60s radical hippies. I mean, they're so old, they can't hardly get around in the Capitol building. They can't remember where they are half the time, just like the president trying to shake hands with ghosts and can't figure out which direction to go to get off the stage. Why are they still there? They've got all the money a person could possibly want to make them just comfortable beyond what somebody like me could possibly imagine for the rest of their life. They could go off somewhere, have a nice mansion on a hill somewhere, watch their grandkids run around and play with stuff that, a very small portion of humanity can afford because of all the money they've made being in public office. How does that even work? They're in public office with a set income, yet when they get out of public office, if they ever do, they've got gazillions of dollars that came from somewhere. So why don't they do that? Why don't they just go off into their retirement, enjoy their, ill-gotten gain, watch their grandkids play with, the world's most expensive toys, and just, be retired? Why? Because they're addicted to the power. Enough is never enough. That's not the kind of people you want in office. That's not the kind of people you want to cast your vote for. Now, that's not to say that somebody, of an older age can't be effective in public office. They certainly can. But if it's somebody that is addicted to the power, you got to get rid of them. You got to get them gone. Especially if they're so drunk on power they can't remember where they are or even their wife's name half the time. You got to get them gone. So yeah, this is Bible Q&A voting guide. If you vote for a Democrat, you're voting for the transgender agenda. You're voting for the homosexual agenda. You're voting for abortion. You're voting for euthanasia. And I don't care how much you like the person with the D by their name, that's what you're voting for. Because whether or not that person individually would promote such policies, by voting for them, you're putting the party in power. You're giving the party the numbers in Congress, for example, or the numbers in the Senate or the House of Representatives. You're giving them the numbers they need to get their agenda through. Don't do that. Whereas, on the other hand, I know that there's a lot of Republican scumbags. I know that. There's a lot of good ones too. And if you find a good person in office, it's not going to be a Democrat. It's not. I mean, I don't care what Democrat you pick. They're not a good person. They're not a good person. You cannot identify that. That's why I can't even remember her name right now. It shows how much I pay attention to the individuals. Oh, what's her name? But anyway, she's in the news right now because she left the Democrat Party, and she laid it out perfectly. They are insane. Doing gender affirmation surgeries on kids, giving kids puberty blockers, the radical abortion agenda, the radical Green New Deal agenda, all of this stuff she laid out. Somebody put in the live chat who that is. I don't want to say the wrong name, so you know who I'm talking about. I just her name has left me, but yeah, she's been in the news recently because she left the Democrat Party, and she laid out all the reasons why. It's the same reason. If you're a Democrat, if you voted Democrat last time, God help you repent and don't do it anymore, because let me go to the Bible. Let me go to the Bible. Here in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, beginning verse 4, the Apostle Paul says, "For the weapons of our warfare," Christians are engaged in warfare, "for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God, for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments, and every high thing," that's positions of power, "and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ, and being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled." Look at what Paul says there. We are engaged in a warfare, and that warfare is against ideology. We're fighting for the way people think. And look at what the Democrat Party is fighting for. Look at how the Democrat Party is trying to make people think and trying to control the worldview, the outlook, limiting free speech. I don't remember there being a Republican in office when there was legitimate, exposed collusion between people in government and big tech, Facebook, Google, YouTube is Google, Twitter, colluding to censor the speech of American citizens, where the First Son's debauchery and criminal activity. Somebody, dare to share an article about that on Twitter, found out they couldn't. Twitter blocked it just for the link to the article. So here, one of the most prominent means that people use, which is a problem itself, one of the most prominent means that people use to get their news. YouTube says, or Twitter, YouTube did it too. All the big tech, I'll just say big tech. Big tech says, no, you can't share that. You can't share that. If you talk about that on your channel, that's why I'm streaming on Rumble right now. If you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, and my stream goes away, go over to Rumble. That's the main reason I use Rumble, is because of how big tech was actively censoring people speaking against the Democrat shenanigans. I haven't seen any Republicans doing that. Does that mean all the Republicans are good? No, there's some of the Republicans that I'm sure that I would not like to be in the same room with for very long at all. There's some that, seem to be, pretty decent people. From what I know about them, they seem like pretty decent people. I don't know of any Democrats I could say that about in office. Now, sadly, I know some really good people that, I don't know where they are now, that the Democrat Party has gone just stark raving mad insane. I don't know where they are now. I would hope that they have recognized where they they were part of putting things on the slope that got real slippery real fast, and they've changed. They've said, no, I can't go along with it. I can't go along. I was able to go along with it back here until it got to this point, but I can't go along with it anymore. And they've changed. So I, personally know people who have identified with the Democrat Party, have, are just Tulsi Gabbard. That's it. Tulsi Gabbard. Thanks, guys. Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard came out and said, I'm leaving the Democrat Party. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I personally know people that have in the past identified as Democrats that I would say are beautiful people, wonderful people, love them. But if something like family tradition, which I think is, what I think a lot of it, why people kind of stick with the Democrats, even though they've gone stark raving mad insane, is family tradition. Well, you can't, what do we say all the time about, people obeying the gospel? Right? You go through a Bible study with somebody and you study with them, and I've had this happen where you get through the plan of salvation with the person after studying with them about all the different things that we study when we're talking with someone, the Bible, the church, the nature of God, and all these different things that we study with somebody, bringing them to the point of conversion, to teach them the things they need to know to make a committed decision to be a Christian. And we get to the plan of salvation. We say, you have to hear the word of God and believe what it teaches about Christ and his kingdom. And believing that, you have to repent of your sins and confess that you believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and making that confession with the mouth unto salvation. You have to be baptized into Christ to have your sins washed away by his blood, so that he can add you to his church, the one body, the church of Christ. Right. So we get through the plan of salvation, and they say, well, my mom was this, or my dad was this, or my grandma this, or my granddad that, or, and they fall back on family tradition. Right. I've had people tell me I was, born a Baptist, raised a Baptist, I'm going to die a Baptist. Well, then you're going to die lost. Okay. So we recognize that this appeal to family tradition can cause you to be lost. Okay, well, what's the difference with politics? If the only reason you're voting the way that you're voting is because of, family tradition, well, what's the difference between that and refusing to leave an unscriptural denomination because of family tradition? There's no difference. You can be lost because of either one or both. So individually, yes, I know people who have identified as Democrat, beautiful people, but folks, it's gotten to the point to where we need to tell our brothers and sisters in the church, and those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't, and you have this, broader unscriptural concept of the church, apply it to yourselves. Okay, it's the time has come when we need to be more direct with our brothers and sisters and tell them, if you vote Democrat, you are forfeiting your soul. There's no way. There's no, you never be able to convince me of it. It's the exact contradiction of this verse right here, amongst others. the exact contradiction of that verse right there, to say, well, you know, how you vote, the things you support with your vote in a representative republic where the citizenry chooses, and I started to say this a little bit ago and then got sidetracked, but we live in a representative republic where the citizenry chooses who is going to wield political power. So what does that say about a country that would put the kind of dirtbags in positions of power that we have in? Why is it so hard to find a decent person to say, yes, we want you to represent us in the federal government? Why is it so hard to find a decent person to do that? Well, you know, I think there are some decent people who have, you know, stepped into that position. They're all not Democrat. They might not all be Republicans, but none of them are Democrats. I don't know any decent Democrats. In office. So we need to be more direct with our brothers and sisters and say, you can't do that. I mean, I don't know. Is it to the point to where it's time to withdraw fellowship from people who uphold abortion and same-sex marriage and transgender favoritism? You know, transgender. I remember when these discussions were going on about homosexuals and transgenders being given minority rights. I remember a group of, quote, pastors, black pastors, that a very large group, well, it wasn't small, of, you know, quote, again, black pastors that got together and very articulately, I don't know if that doesn't sound right for some reason, but maybe it is. To say very well and clearly how offensive it was to them and what they had to go through in the civil rights movement to get black people the same rights as other people. And now those same rights are being claimed by lifestyle choices, right? You can't change being black. Michael Jackson tried, but you know, he was still black. You can't change that. That's an immutable characteristic. You can't change it, right? Being gay is not an immutable characteristic. I don't care what you say. There's no such thing as a gay gene. Show it to me. Are you telling me that we have not yet reached the level of scientific sophistication in genetic research to be able to identify that gay gene? If there was a gay gene, I promise you there would have been some scientists jumping up and down. You know, that would have been their claim to fame. I'm the one that found the gay gene. How come it hadn't happened yet? Because it doesn't exist. The clearest proof of that, and it is proof, the clearest proof of that is identical twins, where one is one sexual preference and the other one is a different sexual preference. Identical twins are genetically identical. So if being homosexual is genetic, why aren't they both the same sexual preference? If it's inborn to be heterosexual or homosexual or transgender, if that's something that you're born as, if, like Lady Gaga said, you were born that way, then there shouldn't be any differences between identical twins because they're genetically identical. And so, you know, this transgender issue with its social contagion, it's so clear. It is so clear what is going on. And I've asked this question, you know, several times. How did we not see? When I say we, I can't really include myself because my daughter's never been in public school. I'll, you know, take your kudos for that, because, that's not easy. Wasn't easy on her, wasn't easy on us. But we cared enough about her and seeing the way that public education was going to say, no, no way. Ain't no way. I'm not putting my daughter in that zoo. Kids getting brutalized every day because they take all these kids and cram them into these places with no rules. And why do they need metal detectors and armed police at schools? It's because they're not teaching these kids any morality, and they're just shove them in there like a bunch of animals in a zoo. And it's horrifying, horrifying. Ain't no way I'd do that to my daughter. No way. So, yeah, to all of my beautiful brothers and sisters out there that think that they can justify voting Democrat, I worry for your soul. I really honestly do. I really honestly do. Paul said that we are in a warfare, and the very thing that you're voting in support of is the things we're supposed to be fighting against as Christians. So yes, I'm concerned. I'm concerned for your soul. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10, the Apostle Paul says there, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God. Why do you need to wear armor? Because you're supposed to be in a fight. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. That word wiles, it means tricky, scheming, deceitful. And if you don't see that in the current political climate, you ain't paying attention. So that's where the fight is. That's where where we see the devil working the most. That's why I've been so anti-denominational ever since I came up out of the baptistry, because that's where the devil has his greatest success of keeping people out of the kingdom of God. Make them think they're already saved. He's the master deceiver. He can make people think they're already saved so that they don't seek salvation. Why would somebody seek salvation if they already think they're saved? So that's denominationalism. Okay. Well, what about politics? If the devil can so deceive people into thinking that they can vote for just gross immorality and be okay, well, then he's winning. He's winning some victories there. And we need to do everything we can to stop his advance. We need to put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. The imagery there is an advancing enemy line and standing to repel them. That's what we need to be doing. And right now, the way to do that is to stop the Democrats. We got to stop them because they are under the delusional wiles of the devil. I'm convinced of it. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, right? It's a spirit. Don't panic, YouTube. Don't panic, Facebook. I don't have to worry about Rumble because Rumble don't care what I say. We're talking about a spiritual conflict, a battle of ideas, which is supposed to be what the social media platforms were all about, right? The free exchange of ideas. And what happened was when they launched these social social network platforms, social media platforms, and this gateway to the free expression of ideas just was kicked wide open. Conservative ideas shot to the top. And so they said, whoa, wait a minute. This isn't how this was supposed to work. This free exchange of ideas was supposed to produce a more liberal society, not more conservative. Well, conservatism makes sense. Liberalism is insanity. So now it's no more about the free exchange of ideas, and that's where Rumble is coming up, because YouTube censors free speech, Twitter censors free speech, Facebook censors free speech. So there's a market to serve there, and Rumble knows that. So I don't have to worry about Rumble shutting down my channel. I have to worry about YouTube and Facebook shutting me down. But it's not a physical conflict, so don't worry. I'm not calling for armed insurrection. It is against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness. The darkness. That is ideological error, ideological evil. That's what we fight against. That's the darkness. It's ideological evil. Okay? For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Oh, what is that? I wonder. I'm being facetious. I know what it is. Spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Heavenly places there, that's not talking about heaven, because it's a spiritual host of wickedness. Heavenly places there is a term used to refer to high places, positions of authority, positions of power, like Pilate, so that Pilate could pronounce the death sentence on Christ, right? That was wickedness in high places. He thought he could wash his hands of it, be clean of it. No, he's guilty of condemning an innocent man to death. He couldn't wash his hands of that because he was in the place of authority that could have said, I find no guilt in this man, I'm setting him free. But no, he caved to the pressure of the Jews saying, crucify him, crucify him. So he washed his hands in this cowardly effort to, relieve his own guilt of it, which, didn't work, and condemn Christ to death. So this spiritual host of wickedness in the heavenly places, in high positions of authority and power, it's spiritual hosts of wickedness. That's what I was talking about before when I said that I'm firmly convinced that the Democrats are firmly under the influence of the doctrine of demons. They have bought into ideology. Well, I can't even really say bought into, because you heard me in the video clip. It's intentional. They know what they're doing. They haven't bought into anything. They're using tactics, methods of staying in power, and that is to keep people divided. Let's create this identity group here and give them this, and this identity group here and give them this, and this identity group here and give them this. And I can appease several of these groups and have the numbers to stay in power, and who cares about these other groups that disagree with me. So that's the fight against spiritual hosts of wickedness in heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. How can you do that? How can you do that if you're voting to give power to the very things that we're supposed to be fighting against? We should be fighting in favor of life, not against it. Whether it's the unborn baby, which, we've done that before, gone through the passages to show that there's no way that you can support abortion or try to justify abortion and be in harmony with the Bible. No way. It's not possible. When Mary came into Elizabeth, And the unborn child, John, heard her voice. He leapt in her womb. And the Greek word used for the unborn baby John is the same exact Greek word for a born baby. The Holy Spirit didn't make any distinction between unborn. The Holy Spirit didn't come up with, zygote and fetus and different terms to distract from the fact that you're killing a baby. No, the Holy Spirit said John was a baby when he leapt in the womb. The same word that was used for born children. There's no way that you can try to justify voting in favor of abortion. And if you're under the delusion that you can vote Democrat and not support abortion, I don't care. I don't care if the individual candidate that you're voting for says, well, I'm a Democrat, but I'm, pro-life. And don't call the other side pro-choice. Don't let them replace what they really want with a euphemism that gives it a positive, right? Because that sounds good, right? I'm pro-choice. Well, I am too. I'm pro your choice to choose the way that you live your life. Right. I'm not in favor of the government coming in and kicking in your door and telling you that, you have to worship at this particular church, or you have to work at this particular factory, or you have to educate your children in this particular way. Right. I'm not in favor of that. I'm pro-choice, that, I want people to be able to choose, like Moses said, choose you this day. Right. Moses said, choose. Here's the consequences if you choose this way. Here's the consequences if you choose this way. Now, in that case, choose God. You're going to do what God said. That's life. Choose to do contrary to God's will. Choose to not follow God. That's death, right? But the choice is yours. I'm pro-choice. Yeah, the choice is yours. You can choose whatever you want. I'm going to try to convince you and try to show you why the better choice is the Christian life. But ultimately, the choice is yours. So I'm pro-choice. Don't call what they want pro-choice. It's not pro-choice. It's pro-death, right? You got pro-life, pro-death, right? They are in favor of killing a baby. They're in favor of killing a baby. That's pro-death. So I don't care if the individual candidate you're voting for that is a Democrat claims to be pro-life, they're still a Democrat. And when you vote that person into office, that's going to give that party the majority it needs to push the abortion agenda, to push legislation legalizing abortion nationwide, right? Right now, what the Supreme Court decided kicks it back to the states. So, like Georgia's heartbeat bill, it's a states' rights issue. Other states that, say, personally, I don't think it should be that way, because, murder is not a states' rights issue, right? A state, just like slavery, okay? The nation went to war with itself over slavery, because that shouldn't have been relegated to a states' rights issue, right? Owning a human being as property is not a states' rights issue, because it's wrong. And so you couldn't claim states' rights for that. Well, why would it be any different for abortion? Because you're killing someone. How is that a states' rights issue? Murder is not a states' rights issue. So we're fighting against this spiritual host of wickedness in heavenly places. So at the very least, my brothers and sisters that have been deluded to think you can be Democrats without any spiritual accountability for that choice, at the very least, don't make it any harder for me. Okay. If you just can't bring yourself to vote anything other than Democrat, well, sit it out for a little while. Sit it out for a little while. Let's see how things go. Maybe the time will cycle back around where there's not really that much difference between the two, other than like tax policies, foreign affairs policies, things like that that can be debated, and you pick the person that you think has the best ideas. Okay, maybe it'll come back around to that, and you can start voting again. Okay, but as long as the party you're voting for has as their party platform gender transition therapy, treatments, surgeries for children, you can't vote. You can't vote in favor of that. As long as they have as their party platform the murder of unborn babies, you can. I could just say babies, and it would still be true. You can't vote for that. So at the very least, just don't vote. Just don't make it harder on me to try to promote the party right now. And I'm not, look, I've seen comments popping up in the live chat, and I'm going to get to the live chat after I finish my rant. Look, I knew when I started this topic tonight that I was just going to have a full blown no governor rant, right? The pedals to the metal. I'm just letting it rip. There's no governor on this engine. It's wide open. Okay. I knew that when I decided to do this episode of Bible Q&A. Okay. So yeah, I've been ranting and going on for a while. I'm going to get back to the live chat. But can I ask you to do that? Okay. I know the Republican Party is not great in its current, you get back to the history of the Republican Party, it is great, right? The Republican Party was the abolitionist party that was formed to do away with slavery. That was the party platform that formed the Republican Party, was to do away with slavery. That's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. And historically, the Republicans have always been on the conservative side of moral issues, on the abortion issue, on same-sex marriage, on the transgender issue, on all of these different issues. The civil rights movement was overwhelmingly supported by the Republicans, not the Democrats. So yeah, they got a pretty good track record when it comes to racial equality and personal responsibility, and right, personal responsibility. That's a good thing, right? Democrats don't want personal responsibility; they want group identity. Okay, so I understand that there are some Republican candidates that are dirtbags. I understand that. Okay, but the party platform is that I want to support the party platform. Okay. Now there may be some issues in there that I look at, my beard's going kind of wild over here. I don't want to. I know I sound like a wild man. I don't want to look like one too. But if there's some policies there that would make me kind of go, I don't know. They're not anywhere close to the point of murdering babies. Nowhere close to that. Nowhere close to transing little kids. Nowhere close to that. Nowhere close. Not even in the same hemisphere, the same planet, of taking children away from their parents who don't affirm their gender identity. That's insane. That's insane. Okay. All right. So, yeah, if you just can't bring yourself to vote for something other than Democrat, then just please, I'm begging you, don't vote. Because for one, it'll put your soul in jeopardy to support gross immorality. Two, it'll make it harder for me to try to promote things that will get us back to some semblance of sanity. Okay. So that is my request for you. All right. Let me back up in the live chat. I'm going to go back to the last one that, well, I'll tell you what, I'll just go, well, no, let me do it this way. All right. I'm going to go back to the ones that I starred in the beginning after I get caught up to where we are now. So this is the last one I starred from Daniel Hernandez. So the next one after that is Lori. And Lori says they all support abortion. Abortion became legal under a Republican president, a majority of Republican appointed justices in the Supreme Court, and a Republican led House and Senate. Evil is everywhere. And I'm a Republican. Lindsey Graham, it got cut off. I might have to read it over here. Let's see. Lindsey Graham just proposed a bill in which it was acceptable to take a baby's life. If I understand right, the bill that Lindsey Graham proposed had the exception for rape and incest in it, right? Which I don't agree with. I don't agree that there should be exceptions where it's okay. Excuse me. The camera's messing me up trying to get my mustache hair out of my mouth. So, I don't agree with these exceptions, right? There shouldn't be an exception that makes it okay to kill an innocent person. Okay. We say, okay, killing an innocent person is murder unless what? They're an innocent person. You can't murder an innocent person and justify it. So these exceptions, rape and incest, right? The baby's not the one that committed the rape. The rapist should be put to death, not the baby. And yes, I do believe rape should be punishable by death. Rape should be a capital offense punishable by death. The fact that it's not is insane. Rape should be punishable by death. So kill the rapist, because that person has done something that shows that they are not fit to live in a civilized society. So yeah, give them, a couple of weeks, a month to repent, whatever, try to get their soul right with God. I'm perfectly fine with that. This guy gets pronounced guilty of rape, goes to death row, which should only be for about a month, not years and years, right? If you can't come up with your appeal and the reason why this is an unjust, case in about a month, right? Especially with our current level of technology where, there's DNA and all this stuff that they use to convict people, right? If you can't poke holes in that in about a month, well, then, you gave it your best shot. And, so I'm all in favor of giving them some time to, get their soul right. Give them the opportunity to hear and obey the gospel so that when they get put to death for their crime, like the thief on the cross, I'll bring it back to the thief on the cross for that one, right? Because my personal opinion for the thief on the cross is that he was a thief who became a disciple and did what John the Baptist was telling people to do, to repent of their sin, make restitution, right? This thief on the cross did that. Well, the government says, well, great. We're, that's great. You say you're sorry, but you're a thief. We got to put you to death. Right. So, okay. He was someone that got himself right and then faced the consequences for his actions. Right. That's the thing about repentance too. It just galls me to no end to see these politicians getting up with this tearful apology and saying, oh, I'm sorry. And then go on just doing the same thing they've been doing all along. That's not repentance. Repentance means that you acknowledge that you were wrong and face the consequences for what you did. So yeah, I think we can bring it back to the thief on the cross there. He got it right, but he still had to face the consequences of his crime. Yeah, okay. So this rapist that is on death row because rape should be a capital crime, child molesting should be a capital crime, right? Victimizing people in a way that alters the rest of their life irrevocably. If you victimize somebody like that, you're not fit to live in a civilized society. And that should be punishable by, I mean, look at the death penalty in Israel. I mean, picking up sticks on the Sabbath was punishable by death. So, I think we can, kind of draw back, a little shy of that and be okay. You go in and you point a gun in somebody's face to take what belongs to them, death penalty. That's a violent crime. Whether you pulled the trigger and killed the person or not, you endangered their life because you wanted their stuff, death penalty. You're not fit to live in a civilized society. What was the whole point of the death penalty in Israel? Now, you want to get political? The best political system we can look at is the divinely inspired political system, isn't it? And what was the whole point of, unarguably, a very tough penal system of not penal system. That's not the right word. A very tough judicial system where it didn't, the level of what was punishable by death wasn't, by our standards today, wasn't that high. But why? Because not getting rid of that stuff in Israel would have corrupted the whole nation. It did corrupt the whole nation because they didn't maintain the standard. So it did end up corrupting Israel by not following that. So yeah, I mean, personally, me, if I had my rathers, I would rather there be more things punishable by death, not fewer. Okay. Let me go to the live chat. So Lori said they all support abortion. Oh, I read that already. Let me talk about that exception that Lindsey Graham put in there. I don't agree with it. I don't think that there should be any exceptions. But when you look at the exception of rape and incest, okay, you're gonna ban abortion except for rape and incest. The percentage of abortions that would fall into that exception are extremely rare. So, and I kind of think, if I'm thinking about it right, because honestly, I haven't been, paying a lot of attention to the news lately because it's just insane. It's depressing and insane. So I've just kind of, except for, very specific things, haven't really been paying much attention. So I haven't seen that, but it seems like I recall Lindsey being kind of blasted over this inclusion of the exceptions for rape and incest. Okay. And I think one of the things he's doing is to show that the Democrats aren't really interested in the health of the mother. That's not that's not what they care about. I started to talk about this a little earlier and got sidetracked, but that's not what they don't care about the health of the mother. They could care less about the health of the mother. That's not what they want. So Lindsey can kind of show that by putting forward a bill that includes those exceptions, that takes the health of the mother into consideration, and they shoot it down Because anytime you get a Democrat in a debate about abortion, they talk about the health of the mother, the health of the mother, the health of the mother. It's not about the health of the mother. Medical technology is at a point now to where actual instances of having to choose between the life of the child or the life of the mother are extraordinarily rare. So by putting that out there and including exceptions that would be, the health of the mother, mental health with rape, incest, other issues with the health of the mother, by putting that out there and making them vote against it, which they will, that does away with that. They can't debate that anymore. They can't pull that lie anymore because they voted against it. Right? So that's one thing. Another thing is, if a bill like that with exceptions in it that I don't necessarily agree with, not that I don't necessarily agree with, I don't agree with. I don't believe that there are legitimate exceptions for killing an innocent person, right? It's like, standing up a perfectly innocent person that hasn't done anything deserving of death and putting a gun to their head and saying, it's, this is the reason that I'm killing this person, and it's going to justify me killing that innocent person, not as an act of vengeance or revenge, or that the person did something horrible that I'm getting back at them for, whatever. Nothing like just a perfectly innocent person, and I say, okay, I'm going to kill them. And this is the exception to the situation that makes this not murder. No, it's murder. There are no exceptions that changes the intentional killing of an innocent person to something other than murder. There's no such exceptions, right? Well, that certainly applies to abortion. But those exceptions, the very, very minuscule percentage of abortions that fit those exceptions, if I can get rid of all the rest of the abortions, that would save millions of lives, millions of lives. I'll take that. If that's what I can get, I would like a total ban, no exceptions, period. But if I can save millions of lives by taking a bill with exceptions in it, I'll take that, and keep pushing for no exceptions at all. Okay, I'll take the progress toward no exceptions at all. Toward I really pray for the day that people just in general look back at this time as the period of insanity, and look back at this time and say, man, those people were stark, raving, mad, crazy. How could they say that killing a baby is justified? That's crazy. How could they say that chopping off the genitals of minors, or anyone for that matter, anyone of any age, that chopping off the genitals for essentially a cosmetic surgery of an otherwise healthy individual, even though sick in the head for sure, but an otherwise healthy individual, that's insane. That's insane. I pray for the day when people in general view it that way. Man, can you believe those people in the 2020s? They were nuts. They were nuts. Because that will mean we've gotten back to a point of, just sanity in general. Because right now, our society has gone stark, raving, mad, crazy, insane. Drag queen, strip tease, pole dancing shows for little kids at school. How is that not totally insane? Please, for the love of God, don't vote for that. All right. So that's uh that in principle I agree with you, Lori, but uh in I guess I would say practicality, I still hold to what I said. Voting for Republicans, even if the individual Republican, like Dr. Oz, I'm not a fan, not a fan. But the other guy is non-functional. The guy can't function. He had a stroke. He can't form ideas. And yet people are still going to vote for him because they're voting for the D. They're not voting for that person. They're voting for the D by his name. So yeah, I don't like Dr. Oz. I'm glad I'm not, I'm happy to vote for Herschel Walker. I think Herschel Walker is, does he have a storied past? Yeah, so do I. He claims that he had therapy and he was diagnosed with mental illness and went through therapy, got over that. Now he's of sound mind. Seems like the things that he promotes: personal responsibility, law enforcement, law and order, right? The things that he promotes, I'm for those. So, okay, his storied past, okay, got it. I got it. Please don't go digging for any bones and any skeletons in my closet because you'll find them. Okay? But what does that have to do with where I am today? Because I had a life-changing conversion. I'm not that same person. Well, Herschel Walker claims to have had the same thing. My hand looks funny on the camera for some reason. Herschel Walker claims to have had the same thing. Not of the same nature that I'm talking about, but the issues that have been brought up against him, got over it. Okay, I like what he says now. The main thing I like is that voting for him will give the numbers to the party that stopped slavery and that wants to stop abortion and that wants to stop mutilating little kids. I keep getting sidetracked off of this, but when you look at the Democrat agenda, abortion, the transgender issue, the gay rights thing, what does it all have in common? They can't reproduce. They can't have offspring. Right? Homosexuals can't have babies. Now I know, Dave Rubin used the, immoral method of in vitro fertilization, which requires the death of fertilized eggs, children. Right? I don't care what stage they're at, what they look like after conception, they're babies. When a woman has a miscarriage, she loses her child. That's why it's so emotionally traumatic for a woman to have a miscarriage, because she has lost her child. It should be emotionally traumatic. I know people that have had funerals over a miscarriage, right? Can't find any fault with that because that was their child. So, yeah, I don't like Dr. Oz. I think he's a really horrible candidate. But if him getting elected will give the majority numbers to the party that stopped slavery and that wants to stop abortion and wants to stop mutilating the little kids, to make it a federal crime to mutilate little kids in these gender affirmation surgeries that are insane, Frankensteinish stuff, then yeah, okay. I'm glad I'm not in a situation that I have to vote for somebody that I have to hold my nose and pull the lever. That's how it was the well, I don't want to get into that, but I'm glad I'm not in that situation. But if I was, I would still vote for him because of the party platform. Now, like I said, I'm glad I get to vote for Herschel Walker. I like Herschel Walker. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a decent guy. You know, maybe he did some bad stuff. Well, you know, not maybe. He admits to it, right? He admits to it. And he has talked about his, you know, conversion experience. And I'm using the word conversion to talk about his mental health issues, not his spiritual condition. But he talks about, you know, his, you know, getting help for that and being better. He even wrote a book about it. And so, okay, I'm good with that. Especially because it will help give the numbers to the party that stops slavery, wants to stop abortion, and wants to stop mutilating little kids. So yeah, I'm happy I get to vote for somebody that I'm glad to vote for to do that. But even if I didn't, like I have, you know, in the past, there have been those that I didn't really, you know, I wasn't really thrilled to vote for. But, you know, after voting for them, they turned out to be a great candidate. They turned out to be they turned out to be a great leader in that position that I voted to put them into. So I wasn't real comfortable voting for them to begin with. I had, you know, I didn't really like them as a, you know, their persona or their, you know, the way they presented themselves. Didn't really like it. Wasn't really thrilled to vote for. You know, it didn't go, you know, tap dancing in to vote for them, to say the least. But I did because of the party platform and empowering that party platform. Now, that's not to say I'm in favor of party politics. I wish that we were in a climate where we could distinguish between individuals and the small differences between different policies that weren't really of a moral nature. But with the current climate, we're talking about moral issues that will cost you your soul for not fighting against, not trying to put the people in power that will stop the just full on snowy slope, fast crash to the bottom of the mountain that we're on right now. Because that's what's going on. All right. Jeff Brown says, in regards to the YouTube poll, 2 John 10-11 is pretty clear on whether or not one is held accountable for what they support. In short, yes. Okay. So yeah, I told you I posted a poll in the YouTube live chat. It's 100% yes. 100% yes. So I'm glad that we're all in agreement on that. 100% yes. That yes. Promoting. Let me read it again. And for those that are watching somewhere else other than YouTube, feel free to post your reply to this poll question in the live chat wherever you're watching, Facebook or Rumble. Will a Christian be held accountable for voting for candidates that support abortion? Right. So far, the poll on YouTube is 100% yes. Let me see. Nobody has posted on Rumble, yes or no. Feel free to post if you're watching on Rumble in the Rumble rants, yes or no to that question. And if you're watching on Facebook, then you can post that in the live chat, and I'll see it. All right. So Jeff Brown says yes. Let's see. David says, Norm, ever seen Soylent? That's supposed to be so. Yeah, he said here green. Have you ever seen Soylent Green with Charlton Heston? Yes, I have. Soylent Green is people. Yeah, I've seen that. And that's kind of where I was going earlier. I've started I've started down this train of thought a few times now, and I keep derailing myself onto another rant. So, okay, here we go. All of these people that are in power, supporting abortion, supporting the transgenderism, supporting homosexuality, supporting uh, I had another one. I forget what. But anyway, they're supporting all these horrible uh, expressions of immorality, and what do they all have in common? They can't reproduce, not naturally. They can't reproduce. It's population. It's all these '60s hippies that were part of the David the Soylent Green ideology of that's what soil. Excuse me. That's what Soylent Green was about. Okay, Soylent Green was a dystopian, futuristic sci-fi about a time when the population was too large to be supported by the natural resources, right? They didn't have enough food. So what did they do? They started throwing people into food grinders, grinding them up into these, little the like we get now, the little cereal bar things, right? Except they were people. It was about overpopulation. You look at so many of the movies from that Logan's Run about overpopulation. Planet of the Apes, overpopulation. Right? They have this idea that they have to reduce the population of humans on the planet. And so that's why I said in that video clip, that's why I said, and I'm convinced of it. It is intentional. It's just these crazy things that they're doing. It's all about population control. They still believe that humans are killing the planet and we have to reduce the human population. They still believe that. These crazy things that were promoted in the 60s, they still believe them. These 60s hippies are the ones that are the geriatrics in the Capitol that can't remember where they are half the time. But they can remember, we need to reduce the population. That's all they got on the brain. And these billionaires, what would be the interest of a billionaire like Bill Gates, like, Zuckerberg, like, the Twitter folks, and, what would be their motivation to reduce the population? Okay, well, I'm a billionaire. I deserve the resources. These peons down here, they're using up all my resources. I need to get rid of them so they don't deplete the resources for me to have, for my children and their children, and our noble class. Right? That's the United States doesn't have a nobility in name, but we have a nobility, and these billionaires, upper millionaires, they want to preserve the resources for themselves. It's population control. Homosexuals can't reproduce and increase the population. You give these kids 8, 10, 12, 15-year-old kids puberty blockers. 15's a little late for puberty blockers, right? Which, I mean, that says something, doesn't it? Right? If you're 15, too late. So we're talking about 12, 13-year-old kids being put on puberty blockers. They're never going to be able to have children. They're never going to be able to have children. Right? These crazy things that are about population. So yeah, I've seen Soylent Green. That was a long rant to say, yes, I've seen Soylent Green. Lori, in reply to David, I've seen that movie. My husband and I were just talking about it. Yeah, because we're living through it. I wonder how long it's going to be. Do you remember? It hasn't been that long ago when we found out that the fetal tissue from the hundreds of thousands, millions of abortions that have taken place. That this fetal tissue was being purchased by energy companies to burn for fuel. So we're burning our lights on the bodies of babies. I mean, that's some sick stuff right there. You know, when it was exposed, people came out and said, "No, you know, that's that was a mistake," or what, you know, and then they kind of brushed it under the rug. I I haven't seen anything to convince me that it's not still happening, because it's classified as biological waste, and energy companies burn biological waste as fuel. So when you flip on the lights, it's being powered by, in part anyway, biological waste. So yeah, we're living through Soylent Green. And you know, how long will it be before they actually start trying to feed us? They're already trying to feed us bugs, right? And synthetic meat. Bill Gates, I mentioned Bill Gates a minute ago for that reason. In connection to Soylent Green here, he wants us to stop ranching and the production of beef cattle, or you know, cattle for meat, whether it's cows or, you know, whatever. No, let's switch to synthetic meat and bugs, right? We need to start eating bugs because it's friendlier for the environment for us to eat bugs. Bugs don't have as much of a environmental impact as, you know, 100 head of cattle. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't eat a bug. You know, maybe I've heard that, you know, crickets with the right seasoning, they're a little crunchy and, you know, they're kind of nice. I'm not saying I wouldn't try it, but you know, the trend is toward Soylent Green. It won't be long. They'll be trying to push people on us as food. All right. Let's see. The U.S. government is a money laundering scheme, or Ponzi scheme, or both. Yeah, you know, it how do you explain? And I've heard, you know, different attempts at explaining it. How do you explain somebody going into political office, public service, with a set annual income, right? It is set. It doesn't fluctuate. You don't get raises. Well, they vote themselves raises, but you know, it's set. Uh, how does somebody go in political office and, you know, 4 years later, 6 years later, 8 years later, come out of office with tremendously more wealth than they went in with? How does that happen? You know, not considering the salary that they received while they were in office. Okay, you look at their value when they went into office, their value when they came out of office. Deduct the salary they got for being in office, and you've got millions and millions and millions of unexplained income. Well, I want an explanation. I want to know where that money came from, because the people in power are there to enrich themselves, not the country. And as long as that's the case, things are going to get worse and worse, because we are a resource to them, nothing else. We're not their fellow citizens. No, we're the peons that are just here, you know, for their agendas. And as long as that's the case, things are going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. So yeah, I mean, it's bad. Things like I said in the video, if things don't turn around pretty soon, it's going to be bad. Hello, Gwendolyn. Good to see you watching this evening. David, let me know. No, not Nikki. Nikki Haley's never been a Democrat, I don't think. It was Tulsi Gabbard was the one I was trying to think of. Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah, Lori's right. Nikki Haley was never a Democrat. That's right. I like Nikki Haley. I vote for her. is Tulsi Gabbard. Lori says, my son said this to me today. Every member of the church should not let a donkey or an elephant let them forget they are a member of the kingdom first, and our citizenship is ultimately not in this country. I understand that sentiment. That's why, I'm not registered with any political party. I understand that sentiment. Yes, I'm first and foremost a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, but I live here. And let me put this up again, or for the first time, Ephesians 3, the purpose of the church. See, the church is the kingdom of God on earth, and has a part in the affairs of this world. Okay, so I understand the principle, but we need to also be aware that we live in this world. The church is the kingdom of God in this world, and we have a part to play in the affairs of this world. We are God's instruments in this world for a purpose. And here's the purpose. To me, who am less than the least of all the saints, this grace was given, that I should preach among the Gentiles the unsearchable riches of Christ, and to make all see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the ages has been hidden in God who created all things through Jesus Christ, to the intent that now the manifold wisdom of God might be made known by the church, to the principalities and powers in the heavenly places, according to the eternal purpose which he accomplished in Christ Jesus our Lord, in whom we have boldness and access with confidence through him, through faith in him. Therefore, I ask that you do not lose heart at my tribulation for you, which is to your glory. Now look at what he says there about the church. Okay. To the intent that now the manifold wisdom of God might be made known by the church to the principalities and powers in heavenly places, right? We already talked about that in heavenly places, didn't we? That's positions of power. Okay. So Paul is saying here that the church is supposed to influence principalities and powers in positions of authority, in high places, right? That's what he says there. To the intent that now the manifold wisdom of God might be made known by the church to the principalities, that's rulers, and powers, that's authorities, in heavenly places or high places. Okay. According to, look at it, the eternal purpose. That was God's purpose for the church from eternity. To the eternal purpose which he accomplished in Christ Jesus our Lord. We are failing at our God-given responsibility as the church to influence rulers, principalities, he says, rulers, authority, powers in high places. We're failing to do that. How does a nation that again, last I checked, I need to update my number because I'm sure it's gone down, because that's the trend, that's the times we're in. That's why things are getting darker and darker all the time, because the light is going away. But last I checked, 87%. How does a country of people that identify as Christian, 87% of the country identifies as Christian, again, last I checked, how do we have the kinds of policies that we have in place in a country that, I'll just say the majority, I still think that that's true anyway, that the majority claims to be Christians? It's because we're failing to have an influence on the policies. We're failing to have an influence on the direction that our nation is taking. And we better start having some wins pretty soon, or else it's over, or else we're done. We're going to be, getting up and putting on our uniform and going to work in our government assigned factory for our, food pellets and cubicle to live in. No families, separated at birth, right? That's the kind of dystopian imagery we got from these people when they were making movies back in the 60s. Why wouldn't we think that they still want to do that? They're showing us that they still want to do that. So we better start having some wins pretty soon. Let's see. Lori says again, if a vote can cost us our souls, we better never vote. Now, I disagree strongly with that, Lori. If I have a choice between people that, the one on the left thinks that it's okay to kill a baby, and the one on the right says, no, please don't kill that baby. I think my responsibility as a Christian is to do what I can to enable the person who says, no, please don't kill that baby. So I could not disagree with that more. If you vote in favor of murdering babies, yes, that puts your soul in jeopardy. If you vote against that, you're right where you need to be. Clint Little says, Norm, I am a constitutionalist. Conservative is a nebulous description. I have a much more strict view of how politicians should perform. I don't think any politician in DC knows the Constitution. Well, that's a problem, isn't it? I'm not registered with any political party. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. The only reason I say vote Republican and not Democrat is because the Democrats are crazy and the Republicans are trying to stop them. That's it. Like Lori said, I'm a Christian first and foremost, right? But I live in a representative republic. And so as a Christian who is a citizen of a representative republic, I have a responsibility to try to promote Christian principles in this representative republic. So I exercise my ability to do that by voting for the candidates that are much, much more likely to promote policies that are in line with my worldview, my ideology. And that sure ain't Democrats. I've often thought, Clint, that a real New Testament Christian is much, much more like a libertarian than either a Democrat or Republican, because, what's the whole platform of the libertarians? To get back to the original intent of the Constitution, right? Sounds a lot like us when we say we've got to get back to the Bible and just do what the Bible says. That's what libertarians say. We've got to follow the Constitution and just do what the Constitution says, right? So a true libertarian would get rid of all of these departments that don't have any constitutional authority. They'd look at the Constitution. Just like in the Restoration movement, people looked at the Bible and said, well, there's no authority for, closed communions. There's no authority for, these titles, and we got to throw all that stuff out. Well, a true libertarian would do that with the Constitution. Say, there's no authority for this department. There's no authority for this department. No authority for the federal government to be involved in this. We got to throw all those stuffs out. That's what they would do. So, as far as, the problem is a lot of times the candidates in the Libertarian Party are, they're not appealing and advocating things that certainly we can't support. The legalization of drugs, that's not a victimless crime. That's not something that should be a libertarian issue. It is something that, we should be against. Okay. So I'm not, I don't agree with their position on the legalization of drugs. What does that have to do with the Constitution? It's a criminal issue. It should be, you know, maybe you could say that's a states' rights issue if a state like Las Vegas wants to legalize, you know, this stuff. Okay, that's the good part about having these different states governing themselves, uh, is that if you don't agree with what this state, you know, does, you can move to a different state, right? Especially these days, not that hard, not that much of a you know, impact to move to a state that has policies that you agree with. And right now, you know, the blue states are burning down and the red states are doing good. Well, that ought to tell you something. All right. Let's see. David says a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Absolutely. Carolyn says, hello, Carolyn. Good to see you watching this evening. Hi, Norm. I always heard that the Republicans were for the rich people and Democrats for the poor. That was when I was growing up. Don't think that is the case anymore. No, it's absolutely not the case anymore. The Democrat, and that's, I don't think that was ever really justifiable as an accusation against the Republicans, because that accusation from the Democrats was because the Republicans trying to make it easier to do business, you know, for companies to have their plants and hire people, and, you know, to get rid of the regulations and stuff that make it harder for them to do business. So the Democrats come and say, see, look, they're all for the rich people, making the rich richer. Well, you know, I've never known a poor person to give another person a job. But rich people open businesses. Rich people hire people. Rich people stimulate the economy by opening businesses and hiring, providing jobs, right? Rich people are able to provide jobs. Poor people can't. And so the middle class comes up when it's a more business-friendly environment. It benefits the middle class. So I don't know that I would agree that the Republicans have ever been for the rich people. I think that's one of those stones that was thrown by the Democrats that wasn't justifiable. Okay. But the Democrats now siding with big tech, taking kickbacks and, you know, all of this corruption that's going on now with the corporations and foreign governments, and, you know, the Democrats are in the corporations right now. It's weird to me that all of these CEOs of the, you know, these big corporations, they're Democrats. Well, they know the Democrats will let them get away with whatever they want to get away with as long as the payoff is good enough. Right? So, but yeah, you're right. They can't even, you know, make that a false claim right now because it's too obvious. Lori, in response to me saying we homeschooled our daughter, said, good for you and Lotta. Homeschooling is best. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I always viewed it as my responsibility to educate my child, right? That's my responsibility. Now, that's not saying anything bad about, you know, doing that by that's what Paul is referring to when he said, you know, the law was a tutor, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that by proxy, but you're the one that decides what your child gets taught, right? It's really alarming right now that Democrats are promoting this idea, supporting this idea, advocating this idea that parents should not have any say in what their children are taught. And they're saying it out in the open now, right? They kind of kept that under wraps before because that's not really something you want to say out loud. You know, parents hear that and they say, oh man, I don't want these people anywhere near my kids. But now they're just saying it outright out loud. I saw a video of school board meeting where a parent at the school board meeting was told that, we're the ones with the degree in education. We're the ones that know what the curriculum should be, what's best for your children. You don't know that. It should not be up to you what your children are taught. That's pretty alarming. So I was always very adamant that what my daughter was taught would be what I agree with. Now she's an adult now. Thank God she survived childhood. She's an adult now. And I pray that the things that we instilled in her as a child will carry over into her adulthood, and she'll continue making decisions in harmony with the ideology I tried to instill in her. Okay. Pray for me and for her in that. Okay. Serious question, Norm. What do you do with the Republican platform or all Republican politicians in general who support the right to life and are against abortion, but support abortion in this case or that case, etc.? And it got truncated there. So I'll finish reading it in the sidebar. Support the right to life and are against abortion, but support abortion in this case or that case, etc. And for all who are watching, there's not one single health issue that would support a traditional abortion in favor of the mother's life. Right. And I think I already answered that. I don't know if you posted the comment before I talked about that or not. But I think I already responded to that. I don't believe that there should be any exceptions. But if the Republicans are able to push through a bill with exceptions in it, that will still save millions of lives. And I'll take it. I'll move the ball down the field as fast or slow as it takes to get to the goal of no abortions. And that's, even with a bill like that has exceptions in it, it's moving in that direction. I want things moving in that direction. So, but I already talked about that at length, so I'm going to move on. David says, too many men who were convicted of rape were found innocent through the DNA test. So I do not agree that raping someone is punishable by death because too many bad decisions can be made on that. Well, I understand your point there, David. And what would need to happen is to say that rape is punishable by death. And because rape is punishable by death, the accusation of rape also carries a very high degree of accountability. So that a false charge of rape, okay, if rape is punishable by death and you falsely accuse someone of rape, well, what have you done? You've attempted to kill that person. You're guilty of attempted murder, which should also be punishable by death. Okay, you do that, you're not gonna have the people, making the false accusations of rape because they'll be afraid that they themselves will be the one going to the to death row. Okay, the Bible speaks very clearly about false witness. That was something that was punishable by death in Israel, bearing false witness. So if it is a crime punishable by death and you bear false witness against somebody in an attempt to get them killed, well, that's attempted murder. All right. So yeah, I'm not saying that there wouldn't have to be a lot higher standards for how these things are investigated. And obviously it wouldn't be the same as it is now where, believe all women, so to speak. I mean, it's insane. Isn't it? Just because this is a woman accusing a man of doing something wrong, you automatically believe her. That's insane. That's insane. Right? Let me take it back to the Bible. Eve was deceived first. That's insane. Believe all women. That's insane. Now, I I get the sentiment there that a woman has a claim of misconduct toward her. Yes, that should be investigated seriously. That should be taken serious. That should not just be discounted out of hand. And so I understand that that's where the Believe All Women, the Me Too movement, that's where that came from. But it's insane to just say believe all because it's a woman accusing a man of misconduct. You automatically believe the woman. No, you got to do your work. You got to do the investigate. You got to do the investigation. And if it is discovered that it was a false charge, a malicious false charge, that's attempted murder. Okay. And since it would be punishable by death, you would have to increase the standards for how it's investigated, the kind of evidence that's necessary to substantiate the claim, right? Especially now, you can't do anything. I wouldn't be surprised if, I got my webcam on right here for the podcast. I don't know if I'm on you can't do it. If I walk out the back door of the church building right here, it's almost certain I'm on camera. There's a security camera somewhere pointed at. You can't do hardly anything right now without being on camera. We live in a surveillance state. So there ought to be plenty of evidence. All right. Let me move on. It looks like, let's see. David followed that up saying, too many women who get mad at a man can say, well, so-and-so, I think it's supposed to be so-and-so, raped me. That has happened quite a bit in the past. Like I said earlier, many men have been found innocent through the DNA. And let's not forget Potiphar's wife. Remember what she accused Joseph of. Right. I got it. I understand your point. And you would have to very strongly decentivize false accusations, right? You make a false accusation, you get found out, you're going to death row. Because, if you made the false accusation and an innocent person did end up getting killed because of it, well, then you're guilty of murder. If you made the false accusation and got caught before the person got murdered, well, you're guilty of attempted murder. So you just have to, raise the stakes so that, and make it so that a woman that has been the victim of rape is listened to. Her claim is investigated. She knows that her claim is going to be investigated. She knows that if the person is guilty, he's going to get caught and he's going to die. And she also knows that if she's making a false accusation, she's the one going to die. Okay. So that's how you get around that, or not get around that. That's how you deal with that. Let's see. I've outlasted Lori. Well, it's been a pleasure, but I've got to run. Have a good evening, all. Thank you for watching, Lori. Appreciate it. David says, they make money from insider trading on the stock market plus lobbyists. I know they do things. This I'm sure this is David responding to my comment about how they leave office so much more wealthy than they entered in office. And that's exactly right. Insider trading. The same thing that if a friend of mine that somehow had influence over some, business decisions that they knew were going to affect stock prices, I don't know anybody like that, but let's just suppose I do. And they called me up and they said, hey, the board is getting ready to make this decision. When this goes public, the stock price is going to, skyrocket or it's going to drop. Buy or sell now. Right. And I acted on that advice. That's called insider trading. It's a crime. I could go to people. Martha Stewart went to prison for it. Right. So the exact same thing that I would go to prison for, politicians do on a daily basis. They know, okay, well, this bill that we're fixing to pass is going to affect this stock in this way, right? They've already been working with the lobbyists, so they know exactly what's going to happen. And so they act on it in the stock market and reap the benefits of it. That's against the law. They're not supposed to be able to do that, but they do. Lobbyists pay them exorbitant amounts of money to pass legislation that favors them. That needs to be reformed. The lobbyist system needs to be reformed. I was thinking about the problem with the deep state. Okay, how do you deal with, because I understand that when you have a political seat that changes every 2 years, every 4 years, every 6 years, right? Every 8 years. When you have a political seat that changes with that kind of frequency, I mean, especially 2 years, that's quick. You need a staff in place that the people, entering into that position can, have in place to use. Right. Well, the problem now is that has developed into a deep state. So it doesn't really matter what the candidate, believes or promotes. It's the people in his staff that's really making the decisions, writing the bills, and then saying, "Hey, here's this bill, and push this." And the person in the seat just said, "Oh, okay," and and I was thinking about, okay, well, what do you do about that? And this is this is my plan for how to eliminate the deep state. Every representative, every senator, well, for one, you need to get rid of the popular election for senators, right? Senators were originally appointed by the state legislature, which focuses the attention on the local government, which is, what we need. That would be part of the reforms that we need to make things better. Is we need to focus, back in the state and strengthen states' rights. And that's what the senators are there for. The senators are supposed to represent the states, not me as an individual Georgian, right? I've got a representative in the House of Representatives that is from a small district that I'm in, that I vote on, that is supposed to represent me as an individual citizen. Okay. The senators are supposed to represent the states. And originally they were appointed by the state legislature. So the state would vote for the state legislature, knowing that if this party is in control of the state legislature, they're going to give us senators that will promote these things on the national level. If the other party is in control of the state legislature, they're going to appoint senators that will promote that party's agenda, right? And so they would focus more on the state house to get the senators to represent the state. Well, right now, the states don't have any representation. The senators are just two more representatives, right? So the state has the number of representatives in the House of Representatives based on their population. Then they basically got, two super representatives in the Senate that don't represent the state. They're running for the popular vote, not appointed by the state legislature. Well, that was a mistake. That needs to be undone. I think it's the 14th Amendment, or I don't want to say the wrong, I don't want to name the amendment that did away with slavery. And, somebody said, "Oh, well, Norm said we needed to do away with that." No, it's I don't remember the exact number. I think it's the 14th, but I could be wrong. That made it so that the senators run for the popular vote of the state, not appointed by the state legislature. We need to repeal that and restore it back to the original constitutional intent of the states being represented in the Senate and the people being represented in the House of Representatives. Okay. So that would, solve some of the problem. But my plan was that each representative, each senator has a staff from the state. The state provides the staff. You know, the representative, their district provides their staff. The senators, the state provides their staff, and you don't have this entrenched permanent Washington staff that has become the deep state, right? That would get rid of that. All right. Clint Little says, I've been on the road trying to support my very liberal daughter, have not been able to comment much. I will write some comments later. Read platform of the Constitution Party, USA. Think you will like it. I've heard of the Constitution Party. You know, this kind of goes back to what I said earlier. It would be nice if we were in an environment where we could focus more on the individual rather than the party, which that's how it's supposed to be. I mean, George Washington spoke against party politics, said party politics, you know, would be the death of the country. Maybe not in those exact words, but that's what he said. He was very much against party politics. Okay. So it would be nice to be in an environment where the party didn't really matter. You were, you know, comparing individuals. But right now we can't do that because the party platforms are really where the power is. It's not really in the individual candidate. It's the party that needs the numbers to be in the majority to push their agenda. So whether or not the individual actually goes along with the, you know, party or not doesn't matter. It's the party platform that matters. And that shouldn't be the case, but it is. Okay. So that's the reason I say, you know, support the Republican Party, because voting for these third parties like Libertarian or Constitutional Party, or, you know, there's some others, they don't have the ability to stop the Democrats from their agenda. The first thing we need to do is to stop the Democrats. We have got to do our absolute best to stop the Democrats from being able to continue their agendas, because it's really bad. They are really bad. And the best way, the most effective way to do that is to support the Republicans. Now, I'm sure that there are some other parties about that I would be more in agreement with. Like I said, you know, really, when it comes right down to it, I would say I'm probably more in line with libertarians than anybody else, because I believe in personal responsibility and letting people make their own choices and to face the consequences for their choices. Okay. But that's the key. If you're going to give people the freedom to choose their own, you know, activities, well, then you also have to let them face the consequences for their choices. So you can't, like, you know, for example, legalize drugs and then have social programs to pay for the consequences of people choosing drugs. You have to say, okay, you know, if you want to do drugs, then, you know, that's your choice. You can do that. But don't come to me asking me to, you know, pay for the consequences of that. You have to accept the consequences for your choice. Right? That's what Moses told Israel, right? You can choose, but here's the consequences, and you have to accept the consequences of your choice. All right. So, let's see. Clint says, politically and morally, the extreme size of government is one of the very top problems that allows and encourages massive corruption. Absolutely right. The federal government is massively oversized. The federal government should not be anywhere near as large as it is and powerful it is. There's not supposed to be that centralized power in Washington. It's supposed to be the states. And the citizens of the various states should be much more concerned about their state politics than federal politics, because federal politics aren't really supposed to touch the individual citizens, right? The federal politics are, for the defense of the nation, for the cohesiveness of the states, not for the, legislating the individual conduct of individual citizens within the states. So I agree. The federal government is massively oversized. 90+% federal government is illegal, unconstitutional. I agree. Let's see. Okay, Clint. So I was right. It's the 14th Amendment that says that the senators would run for popular vote of the state, not be appointed by the state legislature. So yes, that needs to be repealed. You are correct. Let me put it on the screen. Clint says you are correct about parties, but not sure they will go away. We got a long field to move the ball down to get to where we need to be. But if we get to that point, then we can be in a political environment where we are more focused on individuals than parties, which is how it should be. Daniel Hernandez says, I have to follow up on my first comment. After all, an eagle egg is not an eagle, nor a sea turtle, a turtle by their own logic, yet you can go to jail or pay a big fine if you tamper with either one. That's exactly right. And that gets back to one of your pinned comments that I had. I didn't go back to the pinned comments, but I will now. Lori said, I have a friend who is a preacher who was fired because he preached against abortion in the church. Fired. There are more and more in the church who support abortion. That's unthinkable to me. I can't comprehend that. I can't comprehend how a New Testament Christian could possibly support abortion. I can't comprehend it. It's not really surprising, especially with the way that more and more congregations are compromising with worldliness and saying, we can lighten up here, lighten up there, and not be so, dogmatic on this or that. And well, that's where it leads to, supporting abortion. That's despicable. All right. David says, too many churches are scared of losing their tax exempt status. They give in and they are not good for anything. You're right, David. But one of the things, and just to make clear, this is my personal podcast. This is my personal podcast. So I can say, vote Republican all I want to, and down with the Democrats all I want to. This is my personal podcast. It does not come back on Northside. It's my personal podcast. But you're right. Even though that law is challenged annually, it's called Free Speech Sunday, I think. I haven't actively participated in it. I haven't avoided doing what they do on Free Speech Sunday, but I haven't actively participated in Free Speech Sunday. But Free Speech Sunday, preachers are encouraged to purposely violate that tax exempt clause that says if you have tax exempt status, you can't endorse a political candidate, right? You'll lose your tax exempt status for supporting political candidates. Well, that's a violation of free speech. That's, they're the first, the left, that is, the lefties, they're the first to scream about separation of church and state. Separation of church and state. Can't have any religious expression in any public setting because that violates separation of church and state, even though that's a myth. The whole principle of separation of church and state is a total myth. But they're the first ones to scream about it. Oh, can't do that. Separation of church and state. Yet at the same time, they say that we can legislate what churches preach. No, you can't. Yeah. If there is a legitimate constitutional principle of separation of church and state, that's it. You have no say at all over what churches do. None. The federal government may not interfere in the freedom of religion. That's a constitutional right. It's in the Bill of Rights. The federal government cannot infringe on the free expression of religion. And so on Free Speech Sunday, preachers are encouraged to purposely violate that law and to publicly endorse a political candidate. Well, I haven't heard of any that have lost their tax exempt status. I don't know about the climate we're in right now, because I mean, you're talking about an administration in power right now that is actively sending out the FBI against their political rivals. I mean, that's scary stuff right there. That's banana republic kind of stuff right there. That's the precursors of a dictatorship right there. I mean, that's something that should be very concerning. All right. Let's see. Norm, one thing I guess is political I've been wondering about is the Second Amendment and self-defense. Is there a biblical principle in which killing in self-defense is okay? Yeah, I think that there's a big difference between self-defense and facing persecution for your faith. I mean, I could pull up the passages where Jesus told Peter to put his sword in its place. He didn't rebuke him for carrying a sword, offensive weapon. He didn't rebuke him for carrying the sword. He told him to put it back in its place. Right? Well, for one, Peter was carrying a sword to begin with, and Jesus was apparently okay with it. And two, he didn't tell him throw it away. He didn't tell him, hey, why are you carrying that sword? You know, get rid of that sword. He told him to put it away, because the way that Peter was trying to use the sword was wrong. Peter was trying to use a physical carnal weapon in defense of a spiritual kingdom, right? Not that the church had been established yet, but this was all things that had to take place for the establishment of the church. Jesus had already told Peter, when he told him, I'm not going to let you be taken. I'm not going to let you die. Said, get behind me, Satan. You're against the things of God, right? These things had to happen. So Peter was, it wasn't, Peter wasn't doing the right thing by trying to stop them from taking Jesus. Right? But that doesn't have anything to do with self-defense. That has to do with what was actually taking place at that time. Peter had the sword for self-defense, for utility, for whatever. It is an offensive weapon. He had the sword. Jesus told him to, essentially keep the sword, put it up, right? So there's a difference between governmental persecution, which is what the disciples faced and were martyred because they refused to let the government tell them not to preach Christ. They refused to let the government stifle the gospel, and so they were martyred because of it. Okay? There's a big difference between that, governmental persecution, and being willing to lose your life, be faithful unto death, is a statement, that Romans, chapter 2, verse 10 isn't talking about growing old and dying faithfully, which, you should, that's a good thing to do, to, no matter how long you live, be faithful when you die. But that's not what Jesus was talking about there when he said, be faithful unto death, because it's in the setting of governmental persecution. And so when he says be faithful unto death, he's talking about, stand up for the gospel, be faithful, even if it costs you your life. Okay, well, there's a difference between that and somebody jumping out of a dark alley with a knife saying, "Give me your wallet." I'm completely now, granted, in that case, yeah, I'm going to take out my wallet, I'm going to hand it to him and hope he goes away. But especially now, in the times we live in now, it's more and more likely that he'll brutalize me just because he wants to, just because he can. He's an evil person that just wants to hurt somebody. And so there's been many instances where the person complied completely and still got shot or beaten and killed. Okay? So there's a big difference between that and governmental persecution. So if somebody jumps out of a dark alley and threatens my life, I'm completely justified in defending myself, drawing my sword and defending myself, so to speak. In my case, pulling my gun and shooting them, completely justified, because I'm not being persecuted for my faith. I'm being, I'm in a life-threatening situation because I'm at the wrong place at the wrong time, or, well, it doesn't have to be the wrong place. I mean, walking down the street, you're not really in the wrong place. It's just there's an evil person there that wants to victimize you. So, it's a situation of, being in a life-threatening situation through no fault of my own, and making a decision whether or not to forfeit my life for this dirtbag to get my wallet, or preserving my life so that I can continue promoting and upholding righteousness. Okay, well, I'm going to defend my life. I'm not going to let some dirtbag take my life just because they want to. Right now, if the government says, if you get up and you preach the gospel on Sunday, we're going to come and get you and we're going to throw you in prison and we're going to execute you, I would be standing in the pulpit come Sunday. Okay, because I'm not going to let the government tell me I can't preach Christ. Okay, I'm going to be faithful even if it costs me my life. Romans or Revelation 2:10, be faithful unto death. That's what that means. Okay, but if the person next door comes over here and says, "I'm going to kill you because I hate Christians," I'm going to say, "No, you're not," and stop them. Okay, but that's not the same thing. So yes, I have the right to self-defense, but I also should be willing to give my life for the gospel. Okay, they're two different things. All right. Let's see where we are. I think that's talking political issues with scriptures makes it a scriptural issue, but don't speak about political parties aside from scriptures because all parties are filled with those who are swayed by demonic forces. I agree, but like I've been saying this whole time, there's a huge difference in the party platform. This idea that, they're all just as bad. That's not true, because there is a party platform. And to vote one way, you're giving influence to a party platform that is evil. To vote the other way, you're opposing that, right? A lot of the times we vote, we're voting just as much against something as we are voting for something, right? So when I say vote Republican, it's because you need to vote against the Democrats, and the Republicans are the most likely way to stop the Democrats. Okay, it's not because I'm a staunch Republican. I'm not registered with any political party. But that's the best way to stop the Democrats. And the Democrats, the Democrat Party platform itself is evil. It is evil. And we need to call it evil. And to support it is evil. Don't be evil. That's all I'm saying. Don't be evil. Okay. Kurt Little says, I have no idea. Does 501c3 tax regs have any bearing on speech? It should not. Yes, it does. I talked about that with the prohibition against a 501c3 from endorsing a political candidate, which is an infringement of free speech and shouldn't be. You're right. Lori says, this is a long one, so I'm sure it's going to get truncated. Lori says, I disagree. We can easily be overthrown. This is disagreement to what I said about that in the video clip. This was a comment that Lori made. These starred comments that I'm going through now were made during the playback of the video. So in that video, I said that the United States is too strong to be overthrown by any other government, right? China can't overthrow us. Russia can't overthrow us. You know, there's no other country out there that is strong enough to defeat the military might of America. They just can't. Okay. But there is the ongoing weakening of the foundation of that, so that will change. And which is, so really, Lori, we don't disagree, because, you know, what you go on to say is what I was talking about, right? Right now, we have that strength. Okay. But through the internal weakening of the country, we're going to lose that. And that's what I said. She says we can easily be overthrown because our government does not support itself, right? That's what I was talking about. A house divided against itself cannot stand. China owns more of our farmland than we do, right? That's because bad policies. That's that internal division I was talking about that allows for something like that to happen. Something like that should not have been allowed to happen. And the reason it was allowed to happen was because of the internal strife, the internal weakening of the country, right? It didn't come from outside. That is not the case because of external influences. That is the case because of internal policies that allowed for that to happen. That's exactly what I was talking about. China owns more of our farmland than we do. American agencies pay our farmers not to plant or to plant crops that are to be used for alternative fuels and not food. It got truncated, so I'll finish reading it over here in the sidebar. They do this under the direction of China. And to that, we are not keeping our military well supplied. Add to that we are not keeping our military well supplied and funded. Why? Because of internal division in the country, right? That's why. That's where the weakening is happening, right? It's not by external attack, military might. They can't. They don't have the military might to do that. So are they trying to influence internal policy to keep us divided, to weaken us from within? Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing, because that's what it's going to take. And that's what they're being successful in doing, that because of our internal division and the weakness that comes from that, right? That's what we have to counter and to we get rid of the Democrats, we get rid of that. That's, I'll say it that way. They do this under the direction of China. Add to that we are not keeping our military well supplied and funded. This country is not meant to stand against every other nation when we leave God out. Oh, well, that's, the nation that turns its back on God is doomed to destruction. That's a fact. And that's again, that is happening through internal weakness, though. Internal division is creating weakness that is leading to these inevitable outcomes, right? So again, it's because of internal strife, not external military might, which is what I said in the video. So we really don't disagree. It's just we're saying it, a little different. This country is not meant to stand against every other nation when we leave God out. But with all that said, we need to be more concerned with the destruction that is happening within the kingdom. I agree. Clint Little said, division is a tool of Marxism. 100%. Absolutely. And I mean, that's not just Clint's opinion. It's not just my opinion. It's in their manifestos, right? Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. That's what it says. Create division. You've got to create division to tear the system down, to rebuild it back in this socialist agenda that they want to pull off. Daniel Hernandez said, hello, Brother Norm. It's so sad that these evil people protect and place more value on a bald eagle or sea turtle egg than a human embryo. Disturb either one of those eggs and you could face head roll. Yeah, that's you're right. You're right. Which, I mean, again, that just goes to show that just goes to show that they are a death cult. They want death. That's what they want. Right. And the very same people who say that it's okay to kill a baby right up to the point of birth, the child can be in the birth canal and the doctor kill it intentionally and finish pulling it out, and it's called an abortion, not a murder. That is sick. That's insane. That is insane. Okay. But those same people, you do something to an eagle or a turtle, oh man, you're going away for a long time. You're not fit to live in civilized society. But you can kill a baby, but don't touch that eagle or that turtle. It's sick. Okay. Looks like we got a couple more since I went back to the pinned comments. I think we already looked at this one by Daniel. There's one more here by Clint, and then we're going to call it a night because I've been on for over 3 hours now. I knew when I decided to do an episode on politics that it would be a long rant because it's a real mess. Long discussion. I think I can show defense in biblical. Offensive use of a weapon by individual or a government is not. Good topic for a show. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we'll have that. Self-defense, right? There's a key word there, defense, right? Now, an act of vengeance is not defense, right? If somebody does something to me or one of my family members and I go after that person to hurt that person, that's vengeance. That's wrong, right? I'm not supposed to do that. But if I'm defending myself to, preserve my life here, to continue my service to Christ in this world, which means the salvation of souls, then I should do that, right? So yeah, there is a difference. But you're right, Clint. That would be a good topic for discussion on a future episode of Bible Q&A. So I know that I'll forget from the live chat. So be sure you post it in the comment section on the video, not the live chat. I enjoy responding to the live chat. Let me check over here on Rumble. I enjoy responding to the live chat, but the live chat kind of goes away. I mean, it plays back during live playback, which means I would have to watch the video to get the comments again. And I don't want to do that. So the comments that you post in the comment section on the video, they get emailed to me and I get notifications. I go and check them. I, put a note to respond to this on future episode. The ones in the live chat are for while we're live. Okay. So, Clint, do me a favor, put that in the comment section so I'll get the notification of it. I'll plan an episode on that and we can discuss that. And whatever it is you would like to discuss on Bible Q&A. I had a couple of comments because, I was pretty sure that having this episode on politics would generate a lot of comment in the live chat. I was right. I appreciate it. I'm glad we had the discussion, but I had a couple of comments, ready to go to, get the live chat rolling. I'll save those for next time. We'll come back to them. I'll add any of the comments that you post to this episode in the comment section. And Lord willing, I'll see you again next week. Thanks for watching Bible Q&A.